Hello, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar on rewards and recognition as a strategic tool and talent magnet in partnership with Xoxoday, Live Your Now. This presentation is part of SHRM India's Knowledge Center. You can also use our hashtag #SHRMINAR to comment on this webinar through Twitter. Today's presentation will be archived and available for viewing on the SHRM India website at www.shrmindia.org. We are saving some time at the end of today's presentation for a question and answer session with our speakers. For viewers watching the live webinar, you can submit questions or respond to the speakers' questions at any time during the presentation. To the left of your screen, you should see a Submit Your Question or Response tab. There's a blank space for you to type in your question or response and then send the same to us. We will hold your questions or responses until our presenter has finished speaking, but do continue to keep writing into us. As a reminder, today's program will last approximately 60 minutes. We would extend the session by a few minutes if needed to facilitate as many of your questions as possible. Today's workforce has more millennials than ever before, and the challenge of hiring and retaining a young, dynamic workforce lies ahead of us. Can we use rewards and recognition as a strategic tool for attracting new talent as well as for employee retention? Here's a little about what you're going to hear today. We will talk about how an organization can customize their reward strategy to suit the needs of an ever-changing workforce, how organizations can implement a fit-for-purpose R&R strategy versus a one-size-fits-all, how technology can be an enabler and a differentiator as one embarks on this journey. Our speakers for today are Unmesh Pawar, Global Human Resources Managing Director at Accenture. Unmesh is an HR leader with over 20 years of progressive HR experience in the professional services industry with expertise in human capital strategy, organizational transformation, and coaching. He is a strong believer in the power of human potential to transform organizations. Unmesh has successfully built and led high-performing, internationally dispersed HR leadership teams to help achieve business outcomes. He has helped businesses build differentiated capabilities in the marketplace through designing and deploying complex talent strategies, acquisition, and talent management practices on a global scale. Unmesh has a passion for teaching and coaching leaders. He is also the sponsor for HR talent in Accenture in India. We also have Priya Arunachalam, Total Rewards Lead at Accenture. Priya is currently the Total Rewards Lead for Accenture in India. And in this role, she manages compensation and benefits for all Accenture employees in India. Priya comes with 15 years of compensation and benefits experience, apart from experience in HR service delivery and managing people programs and policies. Priya has successfully designed and implemented rewards programs for technology, operations, as well as consulting businesses. She has helped businesses use rewards as a key tool in engagement and retention of employees, improving return on investments in rewards and crafting rewards models and strategies in line with business and economic strategies. Her current passions include enabling agile, custom-made, and analytics-driven decision-making capabilities to businesses. We will now be handing over to Unmesh for the presentation.
Thank you very much, Delnas. Delnas, if you can confirm that you can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Lovely. Thank you very much. A good afternoon to everybody, and thank you for joining this webinar. As we begin, first and foremost, I'd like to thank SHRM for this initiative of putting this webinar together. I'd like to thank Delnas and team for really helping get the best of the thinking together on this one. I also like the opportunity to thank Team XOXO and Swapnil, I think, is representing them for being a sponsor of this. It's an exciting topic, and I think between Priya and me, we're going to try and see how best we can bring to color the importance of rewards and recognition in the ever-changing environment that we are right now all trying to get our arms around. I'm going to try and do the overlay or set the business case for rewards and recognition, and Priya is the residential expert. She's the one who understands the space in a way that none of us really understand as much. And Priya is going to try and drill down a bit and try and give you examples and tips and tricks that have worked for her as well as for Accenture as we with our own rewards and recognition frames. Now, thinking about the importance of rewards and recognition, what you will see on your screens very soon is a slide that talks about the modern organization's hierarchy of needs. All of those of you who have learned Maslow's needs hierarchy will relate to this. What we have tried to depict through the slide of InnoVentures, right, is what, if you look at an organization, what kind of hierarchy does an organization go through to really become an evolving organization? Right? There has been a lot of rhetoric around the fact that the millennials are coming in, workforces are going to be shaped with more and more millennials coming in. Clearly, about 33 to 40% of the workforce in major geographies like the United States, India, are millennials. I think in another year or so, 75% of Accenture's workforce globally is going to be millennials. Now, by definition, the millennials are people that have been born after 1994. And we all know that as we start seeing different generations in the workforce, the needs of these generations are very different because the environment that it shapes them is very different. And the millennials, research says, want to work in a place that truly they can connect with to the purpose. They want to be able to make an impact and see how they can leave a legacy. And needless to say, of course, all the fun stuff, they need the free food and the bean bags and a very happy environment. But if you look at the chart here, it talks about what's changing about the workforce and what's changing about the workforce in the organization, right? Now, first and foremost, at the base of all of this, right, the base of all of this is really around the business, is really around the purpose of where the business is and what the business wants to do. This is really about what is your strategy, and the strategy really comes from what's your purpose. And with the purpose comes the strength and spine of the organization with its execution muscle to bring it to life. So essentially, the organization's business model and how it plans to deploy it, its distinctive capabilities in the changing environment, define how it's going to be successful in the competitive landscape that they are operating in. Now, if you don't know where the organization is going, there is no hope that you're really truly going to actualize anything at any given point in time, right? So that's the base of it, really around business, clear sense of purpose. The next one is really built environment and digital ecosystem. In work terms, this is where people get things done. And in today's environment where technology is changing almost 3 times, almost every 2 years, increasingly you're starting to see that the systems of engagement that allow us to connect and collaborate to common goals are different, are aggressively changing. But that doesn't mean that the physical environment that we operate in means anything less. Nothing beats face-to-face interactions, and those of us who work virtually realize and know that. Right? And the physical environment that is geared to facilitate that is best likely to feature prominently as an organization that's thriving and moving forward. And this also allows organizations to compete more effectively in the marketplaces that they're playing in. The third one, I think, is another important one, is really culture. Culture is what makes us feel a sense of belonging and comfortable in the work environment that we are operating in. This is the rules of the road. This is what defines what goes in an organization. It is very necessary because it's not the right that it is. This is where the work truly happens, because this is where you find the revitalization of the organization to meet the outcome that it desires. And for those of us who believe culture eats strategy for lunch, then it's right. That's the reason why it's so high up in the hierarchy. especially for as the organization is evolving. Recognition. Now, this is also an element that could be seen in the actualization space, but it's lower than the others, right? It still matters. It means a lot, but it is not necessary that money and peer recognition itself is all that we need to grow. I think money is hygiene, rewards and recognition are hygiene, and we need to do a good job of constantly reinventing them and keeping them energized, keeping them exciting enough so people can feel the value of it and it meets their hygiene needs. At the apex of this is creativity and innovation, right? And I think this is the pinnacle of achievement. Everything else, as with the original framework, needs to be in place to be able for an organization to get here. It is the reason for existence of an organization. If the organization is not constantly innovating and creating new possibilities, then the chances of the organization to have sustained success over a long period of time is only limited. And we as an organization, Accenture, truly thrives in constantly reinventing itself through innovation, reinventing itself through creativity, because we believe that we exist to help our clients become more effective and high-performing businesses. And therefore, it's equally important for us to have rewards and recognition frameworks that energize our people so that they are energized to create innovation for our clients. Now let's look at what research says about this whole recognition space. So if you look at internal and external research, right, and I'm sure all of you have seen some of this, right, there is enough and more evidence through research to say that organizations with effective R&R programs have a lower attrition. Right? So there's research that Deloitte's done around that. Career opportunities, recognition, and brand are consistently the top engagement drivers for people coming out of the Aon Hewitt study. 41% of companies that use peer-to-peer recognition have seen a marked positive increase in customer satisfaction. Again, this is research that Sherm had done. If you look at our own research internally within Accenture, we have seen huge correlation between rewards and recognition and retention of our people, performance of our people. So for example, when we looked at things, we saw that employees who receive recognition within the organization stay with the organization far more than twice as more rather than people that have not received recognition. And Priya will talk about our program of what we call a celebrating performance recognition that we have, and Priya will talk a bit more about that in a bit. We looked at our clients which we consider as diamond clients or key clients for us, and looked at performance of those clients. And we realized that, and there are teams that do a phenomenal job at some of these clients, and we looked at what defines that. And we realized that better recognition culture clearly defines far more successful outcomes for our clients. Across all our businesses, we've seen this pretty consistent across whether we look at Asia markets, we look at European markets, or we look at North America. We find this to be pretty consistent. So clearly there is enough and more evidence and research to prove to the fact that a good reward recognition system that is agile, that's responding to the changing needs of the marketplace, the changing needs of the demographic of the workforce, and the organizational intentions of what capabilities it wants to build, connecting back to what I talked about on the hierarchy slide, right, defines success for the organization. Right. I'm going to now call in Priya to walk us through and talk us through, as the rewards expert, on what her experience has been and her point of view and examples coming out of her learnings. So Priya, over to you.
Thank you, Unmesh. I just want to make sure I'm audible. Delnas, can you hear me clearly, please?
Loud and clear to me.
Yes, it's coming in clear.
Thank you. Awesome. So thank you, Unmesh. And I know the slide is still coming up as that happens, it would be good to hear from the audience as well on what your thoughts are, reactions, your own insights from your organization and what you're struggling with. But I do want to spend some time talking about the rewards trends that we are seeing, a lot of it based on our Accenture internal research. But before that, why are we here? How did we get to this point? Most of you are aware that in the industrial age, and of course I'm going back by more than 100 years, rewards frameworks were fairly straightforward. You had base pay and, people were just coming together to work, so it was only base pay. Next, we saw the advent of motivation theories. So because of all the theories on Maslow, etc., variable pay took center stage. We had incentive pay programs that actually every organization started investing in, and that was phase 2. As we transitioned globally into a knowledge economy, organizations really started realizing the value of skills, of building deep expertise and holding on to people who come with deep skills and expertise. So we added the skills-based pay approach there. As companies went public, it was all happening together. So equity-based compensation again, formed a part of the package. And a lot of focus, started returning, as we kind of went from the industrial age to the knowledge worker. A lot of focus on humanizing the workplace, humanizing on looking at the human side of the worker or the employee, and hence a lot of focus on the benefits, benefits which are beyond, the cash compensation. All this, I would say, are kind of the first or second phase of evolution, and most of you in India would agree we haven't really kind of had any tectonic shifts in rewarding our people since then, until perhaps now. So why the need now for us to really start changing and doing a complete refresh of our reward strategy? One, I think the speed, the nature of our businesses, the agility at which we are being expected to reward our people. And like Unmesh mentioned, the millennials, right? What they are demanding of us, of our organizations, the transformation that they are demanding, all of these are pretty much driving us to change how we look at rewards. Some of the trends that I'm going to talk about are global. They may not have really caught on too much in India for various reasons, but I don't think we are far behind. I think we have it all. We are creative, innovative, and I think the entrepreneurial zeal in India is second to none. So all these trends will soon catch on. But the trends that I'm going to talk about are based on Accenture research on companies that are our clients. And 4 distinct trends that we're seeing. The first one is on real-time rewards and bonuses. So most companies right now have actually moved away from just having one annual cycle, one increment process, etc., to reward an employee. Everything is becoming real-time. As an example, Accenture, for parts of our workforce, for a particular demographic basis, a lot of research and thinking, we continue to have a quarterly model where they become eligible every quarter versus waiting for an annual cycle. At some of the more junior levels, folks can actually, get increases at 6 months, again, in response to the millennials. But how do we make rewards much more real-time than it is today? A few examples that I want to share here. There are companies globally that actually set aside budgets for managers to disburse through the year and not only during the annual process review. There are companies which actually set aside money for peer rewards. And this, if you remember what Unmesh spoke about the millennials, for millennials, peer recognition is so important. So, and I'm going to quote this company, Zappos, very frequently. Zappos, for those of you who don't know, it's an Amazon subsidiary. They're an online shoe and clothing retailer in the U.S. and fairly kind of advanced in their people practices. So Zappos actually has a cash bonus that is set aside for peer-to-peer recognition. But there are several companies that are actually setting aside monies for line managers to disburse through the year and not only once, during the annual cycle. There are also, cash awards that are being given for various other things other than your rating or how you've done through the year. For example, Samsung has a patent-related reward where they actually reward people as soon as a patent is filed, because for them, innovation and filing patents is their secret of staying ahead of the curve. There is one interesting example of a company which actually pays a failure reward. So if you've been innovative and tried your hand at a project, but it hasn't really succeeded, it hasn't taken off, maybe the organization does not want to invest at this point in time, but it's still a great idea, you will get a failure award. So, and of course, a lot of companies are investing in social, in actually making the awards social through badges, there are gamifications, etc. So all of these are towards the end of making rewards far more real-time for the millennials who are actually joining the workforce. The second trend that we see is in terms of the monetary rewards primarily becoming far more transparent, more personalized, and more flexible. And that's what we are calling evolving types of rewards. The whole premise of this is, more power to the employee. So both the quantum of reward as well as the mode of reward is getting far more personalized and customizable to what the individual may prefer. At Accenture last year, we moved to a hyper-personalized rewards approach. This is our term for it, hyper-personalization, where a line manager can actually reward a person based on their skills, their contribution, their impact, and it's not one number. It is a range that they have, a fairly wide range that they can actually decide how much of bonus a person gets, versus a very regimented, grid-based approach that one used to have. And that is the level of customization that we're actually allowing. Now, I want to recall that I said that both are customizable, both a good rewards framework in these days will allow an individual to choose both the quantum, which typically the manager or someone will choose, but also how I choose to take the rewards. So rewards points, as an example, is one of the ways in which a lot of companies actually enable that flexibility for employees, where you get recognized through points, and we spend a lot of time discussing our own rewards and recognition framework, but a lot of companies will actually allow for that customization. If I want to spend the same money buying an iPhone, I could do that. Or I could donate it to charity because that's something that I feel passionately about. I could also buy myself an experience. I could go on a vacation. One very unique example that I would like to share over here is, again, of Zappos and certain businesses within Amazon, where they actually pay an employee to quit. So if after going through induction, training, and a few months within the company, an employee actually feels like he or she is not going to fit into the culture of this company and is better off outside, Zappos or Amazon will actually pay them money to quit. And that's the level of customization that they have in their rewards framework. I mean, it makes business sense for them because an unengaged employee is not going to add, to their bottom line or to their productivity. So they'd rather let go of the person and enable the person to move out. This is, of course, in the U.S. move out versus, hang around and kind of drain the resources of the firm. So there's a lot of customization that is happening today in the rewards. And more importantly, in the benefits space, which brings me to the next trend, which is about employee benefits and policies. So many examples of increased flexibility, increased benefits itself, because the focus on health, on work-life balance is extremely prominent these days. We have a famous example of Netflix, where if you meet a certain tenure criteria, a certain level criteria, I understand that they actually have unlimited PTO. There are companies which actually allow a new joiner to choose between a higher base pay and a higher vacation. And you can choose depending on what you want, whether you want a higher vacation or higher base pay, or rather cash in hand. There was this one company, a biotechnology company, and for sure I would love to work there. They actually pay the employees to go on vacation. So not only do you get your vacation salary, but you also get a separate amount of money to enjoy your vacation, because they did a lot of research. Of course, they're a biotechnology company. Their premium comes from ideas and people bringing fresh ideas to the table and being able to give their 100% in research, and their own analysis, their own internal analysis showed that when an employee returns from vacation, he or she is far more productive than someone who's not gone on a vacation. So one is not allowed to check emails on vacation. So that seems like a dream place to work for. Maternity and paternity, I think many companies are now ahead. Accenture also, we've increased our maternity and our paternity vacation. But this is an important benefit that a lot of companies are focused on today, and different kind of variations of this as well, including the inclusion of adoption, of surrogacy, etc. in these policies. And a lot, we keep hearing about it. Unmesh also spoke about it, of brag-worthy benefits, concierge, etc. that organizations are focused on. I'm sure there are several examples within this group as well. And that's the third trend, which is the entire focus on the employee benefits, wellness, etc. One benefit which I believe will make a comeback very soon in India, and maybe we will go back to some of the PSU practices or some of the trends from the previous days, is on pensions. We do have a significant part, even for some of the new age companies, technology majors, etc. Some of the organizations where people are starting to retire, and not only retire, there is also this entire generation of early retirement. So it is my hypothesis that there will be a renewal of interest in the pension schemes and the pension funds, etc. So that may be something that one will see, and time will tell whether I'm right or wrong on the benefit side. In terms of wearables and rewards, this is a very, very new trend in the reward space that our research showed. I thought it would be interesting to share it over here. And this is about, and again, very, very few companies, maybe in the US, actually, really investing in this. But it talks about companies that have actually started tracking healthy living basis data and rewarding people for having a healthy lifestyle. Because when an employee has a healthy lifestyle or lives healthy, he's more productive, your insurance costs are down, etc. In the US, there is a health insurance provider which actually provides $1 per day for every employee who hits their daily steps goal. So these are all innovative practices. It may take a while for it to catch on, and in India we have the problem of scale, etc. to deal with. But I'm sure we will see some of these trends emerging in India as well as we go through. I know a lot of you may be wondering why we aren't talking about rewards analytics as a trend, and that is primarily because I don't think rewards analytics is an employee outcome. It is more of a tool for business leaders, for rewards practitioners to actually, get the right rewards framework in place. But most of you all will also know that there is a lot of work, interesting work. Maybe if you're interested, we could connect offline on rewards analytics and how one can really use analytics in the reward space to create an impact to our businesses. I will move on to my next slide. So while that slide, loads, we have a little bit of theory in terms of, okay, here are some trends. Priya spoke about some trends. But as an organization, if I'm looking at recreating or reinventing or transforming my rewards and recognition framework, then where do I start? And of course, when you're devising a rewards strategy or a framework these days, it's no longer only industry specific. I mean, I'm sure all of you have examples of competing for talent across industries. So we're becoming fairly industry agnostic. And as we compete across, how do we have the right rewards framework in place, or how do we re-examine our own existing frameworks? Few pointers from our side, and I hope the slide is up for everybody, but from our side, I think the first principle that we use is really around starting with the people. The whole concept of human-centric design. It puts the focus back on the person, on the employee, on their experience, and on humanizing the entire employee experience for them, including the rewards experience. How one would learn about, what people want, or really how do we start with the people, is through analysis. You segment the workforce. You have several segments, based on demographics, preferences. Also, if you have a good workforce planning system, you can also predict your future workforce and start building systems that actually focus on the people. Like Unmesh mentioned, at Accenture, we know that in a few years, we're going to have 75% of our workforce being millennials. So how are we going to actually design for them? The second principle is really to design for agility, for flexibility and longevity. But the underlying principle is no one size fits all. I think all our organizations are highly complex, and there was a wave of standardization that all of us went through. But now it's all moving back to customization and being very relevant for the team, for the group that we are talking to versus, one size fits all. Technology can be a great enabler. I think we have all the cloud solutions available to help us manage the operational side of this. But designing for agility and flexibility is so important now. The third is, of course, design for desirable behaviors. And I think here a little bit of honesty, right? I don't think we can give the millennials all that they want. And I'm not a millennial, so I can say that. But we can't give the millennials all that they want because we have the economic realities of our businesses to deal with. So one needs to really design for the needs of the organization, not for the wants of the people. And finally, I think, the rewards framework that one designs cannot lose sight of the end customer, the client who your employees are servicing. And if you look at this slide, I think we have a few examples of things that you may want to keep in mind as you design your rewards framework. For example, increase the emphasis on employee experience, right? So anything that would actually focus on work-life balance, on reducing stress levels, I think is a welcome change and is a much-needed change. Respect, and if you again read the research on millennials and not only millennials, everybody in general, I think respect is something that your rewards framework should talk to. So it should be fair. It should treat your frontline with respect. Like I said, the starting point for designing the framework would be segmenting your workforce and then addressing each segment differently, using technology as an enabler for each of those segments. And finally, make sure that you reward those people who are making a real client impact or a real customer impact, as well as some of the people, the unsung heroes who are behind the scenes and really pulling some of the weight or doing a lot of heavy lifting over there. So these are some principles that one uses for effective rewards frameworks in the changing world, and we thought it'd be interesting to share it. But what we'd like to showcase today is one of Accenture's, one of the programs that we have where we bring some of these design principles to life. And it's our recognition framework. It's not so really we are showcasing on recognition and not on the cash compensation part. Like I mentioned earlier, we have a rewards point based system where an employee gets, or rather a manager gets a group of points, a set of points that he or she can reward to people within their team or even outside their team. But the recognition platform that we have also allows for different types of recognition, and I'll talk about that in a bit. But we're just putting the focus a little bit on the Accenture recognition design because we believe, and we're very proud of it, that we have a highly successful program that meets some of the design principles that I spoke about. Very quickly, and this is, HR 101, I'm sure all of you know this. So what should an effective recognition system have? One, it should be timely. Sorry, I'm going to move the slides. I think I forgot to move the slides. Do let me know. I hope you are able to see the slides, but I will voice over it. So in order to be effective, recognition must be timely. I think recognition incentives that are not tied to performance, not not tied to any timelines will do little to drive the results. So teams should foster a culture where employees are recognized immediately in any program that one builds. If you remember the trend that I talked about, real-time rewards, of course, recognition has to be real-time. The second is it has to be meaningful. I'm not sure if you all saw the graphic, the cartoon in the previous, or the comic strip in the previous slide, but there is one strip of where the manager, while rewarding the person, actually doesn't even recognize who he or she is. So that's obviously not meaningful. So obviously we need recognition to be meaningful. And a lot of times, and we had this feedback as well for our employees, saying that, the supervisors are giving points only when the points are about to expire. They're not actually giving us the recognition points, as and when we perform. So it's motivating, at that point in time. And we took that feedback, and we are trying to change some of our internal guidelines to make sure that real-time recognition is happening. Second is, of course, aligned to companies' values and goals. So all the programs should clearly communicate and encourage the values and behaviors that the organization is promoting in order to reinforce those behaviors. For example, if you're focused on innovation, you should have an innovation award. If you're focused on building better managers, better people developers, you should have an award that recognizes and celebrates people development. And finally, personalized, right? So one size does not fit all from an employee recognition perspective. And again, a lot of research to prove this. Some people may like public recognition. For others, they may be totally embarrassed by it. And hence, rewards and recognition should be personalized for the individual that is receiving the rewards. 4 or 5 years old, we launched a program called Recognizing Performance. It used to be called Celebrating Performance. Now it's called Recognizing Performance at Accenture. And essentially what it does is it creates a platform for all the recognition that an individual can receive within Accenture. So what it has done for us is this platform, this global program, I would say, has, of course, improved our efficiency because it's just a click away. And we've seen a spike in the recognition, the tendency to recognize as well. We have global consistency across Accenture because everybody knows it's a branded program. It's a very, it's something, it's prestigious. If you get recognized, you're obviously happy about it. But it also has local relevance because when you get recognized, and even if somebody, say in the US is recognizing you, you would get points. And those points you use to shop within India, or you buy products that are available in India, relevant to the Indian context or what might suit an Indian demographic preference versus, something that's global but may not really appeal to folks who live in India. It has improved the user experience. It's more real time for sure because I don't need to, as a manager, I don't need to really think about, do I need to purchase something for this employee? How do I recognize? I know that it's just a click away. I have these points. Okay, hey, you know what? You've done a great job today. Let me just go and recognize you. And I think we've been very successful at spreading a culture of recognition across Accenture through this program. But coming back to the design principles and how it ties back, if you look at some of the design principles, how they have come to life over here, of course, I talked about it being real time, but also, we have delivering outcomes as one of the awards. So you can actually recognize people for delivering outcomes and you can even recognize a colleague without, giving them points, but through a card, etc., make the recognition public, but very focused on delivering outcomes. We also have something called Thank a Colleague, which enables employees to send an e-card to thank someone. And again, this is for us very important because it fosters a culture of recognition. If you go back to basics, it's about being able to customize. It's about being able to also talk to, where we want to go as an organization. Again, core values. Client centricity is one of our core values, and we have a recognition that actually allows people to recognize, torchbearers of our values. And finally, we have milestones and celebrations. Again, an example of personalizing it because for very many people, the anniversaries and the 10-year milestones are extremely important, and to get recognized for it, gives them a great kick and a great high. Finally, on how did technology help us, make this program very successful? Like I first said, it's extremely easy. So if one wants to invest in this technology, these are some of the advantages, right? It makes it extremely easy. It is possible for managers to share budgets across teams, across supervisors. So again, very easy, and also, working towards if you don't have somebody to recognize, somebody else in another team who's done really well can get the opportunity of being recognized. We also have badges for folks who are good, public recognizers. I hope the slides have come up. But we also have badges for folks who are, good recognizers. There's a gold, there's a silver, and a bronze medal. So it also encourages the culture of recognition. We also have, the public recognition in a virtual world. So the tool really makes it extremely easy to include a larger number of people into the recognition if you want to. Like I said, if public recognition is important to someone, one would tend to personalize the entire recognition to make it far more public. You can also reward groups of people. There is a peer recognition, and of course, finally, there's a lot of analytics that one can derive, not only for HR, but also for a manager or one of the business leads to see how his teams have used recognition as a tool. I'll pause here and hand it back to you, Dilnaz. Sorry, I had to rush through. I know we are running out of time. But I'll pause here. Thank you for a patient hearing. We did not want this to be a monologue, so I'm happy to take any questions and, of course, any ideas and creative thoughts that you have on making your rewards framework far more robust are welcome. So, Dilnaz, back to you.
Thank you so much, Unmesh and Priya, for that enlightening session. We will now be accepting questions for the speakers. Please do continue sending in questions while they answer other queries. The first question would be, how can large companies manage the quantum and the method of receipt of the reward since they have large numbers of employees?
So I can attempt an answer, and Unmesh, I would request you to add in as well. I think number one is one needs to break it down and really be able to, like I said, consistency and standardization are on one side of the balance, but the other side is really on customization. So the mindset of saying that I have several small chunks that deserve a different approach versus saying that I just want to get through with a one-size-fits-all. I think that's primary. The second is, I think, the intelligent use of technology just cannot be undermined. And today everybody is talking about automation. Everybody is talking about how one can use various platforms and tools and digital devices, etc., to actually be able to manage scale. Accenture is a large organization. If you would imagine, we have close to 150,000 people in India, but we still manage the scale by just using these two principles. We break it down into logical parts and see how we can manage each part to make that part extremely successful, without going in on a mindset saying that we just want to, have one size fits all. We are many small companies put together, if you will. And the second is, of course, technology and having the right technology framework to help you manage all this operationally. Unmesh, anything that you would add?
No, I think Priya, you said it all. Let's try and cover some more questions.
Sure.
Thank you. How do we effectively measure employee engagement as surveys are now passé?
I think that's a very good question. UP, you want to take that?
So I think I agree with you that the days and age of surveys are clearly long gone. We within Accenture have truly revitalized the organization with a completely different approach on how we're looking at performance and the performance culture within the organization. So we have revitalized our performance management process. We've got a newer approach on how we're managing performance within the organization. But at the core of this, right, if you look at engagement happens at the level of a team. It happens at the level of the individual. And how does the organization enable having conversations and meaningful conversations at that level is important, right? There is a lot of opportunity with analytics in place to do sentiment analytics and to listen in on what the chatter of the organization outside is and what the chatter of the organization inside is. You can have surveys that are done not organization-wide, but decision-making rested in the hands of the supervisor and the team, where they feel a need to run a survey to do a pulse check of how the organization is. So when you bring all these three things together, then I don't believe that you need a one-time survey to do a long, big bang exercise. I think engagement is a daily activity. It happens through meaningful conversations and meaningful experiences that you create moment to moment for people in the organization. Let's go to one more question.
Thank you. What reward and recognition gestures can you suggest for startups with about 100 to 500 employees?
So, maybe I will attempt and then I will request you to add in. One, I'm sure you have a lot of millennials. So how much you want to really give them what they want, and how much you want to give them how much they need, I think is a fine balance that one will need to walk. But I think yes, I would actually see your size and scale as being working to your advantage, because you can experiment a bit, hopefully, before you start growing, and you can also, customize far more. For a startup, I would reckon that you will still want to stay focused on your outcomes. So rewarding outcomes in the form of your variable bonus, etc., will still be extremely critical. But I'm sure for a startup, rewarding failure and approaches that haven't worked very well could be something that you really work on. Again, in terms of recognition, make it more real time. Make it just as real time as you can be. And if at a scale of 100 to 500, if you're able to even kind of enable your managers to do the recognition through the year by keeping some money in a cash and allowing them to draw on it whenever they can, I think you'll be home.
The only thing I would add to that is be very careful of what precedents you're creating. And it's important that the seeds of the precedent, if any, are sowed in the realities of what you want to create as the organizational culture. Because what you reward and recognize, you will get more of. So be very sure of what kind of culture you want to build, what kind of organizational capabilities you want to build, and do these recognition frames that you're talking about aid that or are going to hinder that. Right? So don't look at every shiny object that somebody else is doing and therefore I have to do. See that there is a direct connection between outcomes for the organization, capabilities that you're building for the organization, and the culture that you want to build as you bring your rewards frameworks in. Delnas, back to you.
Thank you. Will India be ready to reward wellness activities carried out by employees and look at reducing insurance costs?
I think absolutely. The time is right. Even our insurance providers are asking us to take measures, and I think we will make baby steps in the next few years for sure.
Okay. Are there any separate criteria in place to recognize support functions?
That's an interesting question. Right now, at least I do not have an example. Unmesh, anything that you would add? In terms of support functions, we manage support functions rewards exclusively from business. In the sense, at least they are not clubbed with business. They're benchmarked differently. But I don't think we have a separate program that comes to mind. We have a separate strategy for sure in terms of how we position them compared to market, etc. But I'm afraid I don't have any other examples to share on the support function.
I think great question. I think what's important is to understand that Accenture has taken a very focused view at we consider different talent segments that support the organization very differently and ensure that our rewards as well as recognition frames support that work group, right? And therefore, what Priya talked about, right? Therefore, how we recognize and reward business will be separate from how we recognize and reward our support functions. But over and above the standard stuff that Priya just talked about, there are mechanisms that are put in place by for example, in India, the support functions are called corporate functions, right? And we have separate, over and above the existing framework, there are more recognition awards that are put in place to recognize specific behavior that we expect the support function or what we call as enablement function to display towards this business. Right. So yes, but it requires a very different strategy, like Priya said.
Thank you. How do we measure the success of an R&R scheme?
Very good question. Few measures that we have set ourselves for, and these are extremely core to our business and how the business performs. So for us, those metrics are attrition, the other side of attrition being retention. It is about engagement, and it is about client outcomes. So if a recognition program is successful, it's not about how many people I've rewarded, etc. Those are more, I would say, efficiency measures, but the effectiveness measures would be really on how they are impacting your business outcomes, including your profitability, your revenue, whatever are those 3 or 4 core metrics that you track your business to. If you want to have a measurement mechanism, I think you should keep it extremely simple and focused to those 3 or 4 core metrics that you track your business to, and see the correlation between recognition and the impact on those 4 metrics, and you will get your ROI.
Yep. I mean, my request to all of you, right, as HR heads, our focus needs to be on three to 4 very simple things. First, what are we doing from HR practices or talent perspective to enable our business to take more revenues? Second, what are we doing to improve our profitability? Third, what are we doing to be able to take more market share, right? How are we getting a bigger pie of the prize in the marketplace? Those are 3 things that we need to focus on and see the line of sight of all HR interventions, whether it's rewards, recognition, performance management, training, anything that we do, saying how can we connect to those outcomes, right? And if you can establish a straight correlation, then the earlier question that I saw, how do you get business ready to try more R&R and commit to long-term R&R? The issue is if you can show direct correlation between business performance and your interventions, then I don't see why a CEO, CFO, or a COO will not buy into your rationale.
Thank
Now
you.
back to you.
Thank you. How can you reward one individual who has worked brilliantly out of an already successful team without appearing biased towards that individual?
Great question. And like I said, we spoke about personalization, but the personalization of rewards and really rewarding that high performer comes on the back of transparency and having conversations throughout the year with each and every individual of the team. We call it meaningful conversations in Accenture, right? Through the year, as a manager, I'm expected to set the baseline and set the high standard with my team and keep giving them feedback, keep making sure that they're focused on the outcomes, and making sure that they're not comparing themselves with somebody else, but focused on their own careers, on their own strengths, on their own priorities, so that at the end of the year, the conversation is not about why X got a higher bonus than me, but for the individual to actually recognize, saying that, hey, 2 or 3 things that I could have done better would have potentially, made me eligible for a higher bonus. I don't think the comparison philosophy is going to hold water anymore, and there is no shying away from having those conversations through the year and having them, in a very straightforward manner. That's a culture that we are trying to build, where people are not comparing to one individual in a team, but saying that, this is how much I believe is right for me, for my performance, and hey, I always have next year to do better.
Thank you.
Differentiation with transparency.
Okay. We have a 2-part question now. What is your opinion on awards, especially peer-to-peer nominations needing to be approved by a manager? And 2, whether peer-to-peer nominations should be attached to points or financial rewards, especially where there is a large number of fresher workforce and a chance of misuse may be high.
So in terms of peer-to-peer needing a governance around it, whether it's a manager or otherwise, again, it depends on what culture you're trying to build. If you're trying to build a culture of saying, I will govern everything that you do, then that may be required. But if you're going to build a culture of empowerment, of being genuine, of collaborating, and we have done this. We haven't seen cases of misuse, of course, maybe because there's no monetary, angle linked to it. But for sure, it depends on what culture you're trying to build and what outcome you're trying to achieve. Whether you police or not, I think would be an organizational kind of culture decision. And the flip side of it is that you're kind of doing away with the spontaneity and the camaraderie that comes with actually recognizing someone. Maybe you could consider where the managers just kept in the loop when the recognition goes out, but not actually, governing it or policing it. But in terms of the monetary side, yes, I agree with you, especially if there is a financial impact, there are chances of misuse, etc. So you may want to use it for a far more mature demographic versus a demographic where you do not feel like they may use the money wisely.
Thank you. This will be the last question for this session. How would you devise a program accounting for different people from different cultures and nationalities?
So I think great question again. I think I'm going to try and take this, and Priya, if you have something to add to it. But I think if you look at our learnings from our own program, right, our recognizing performance or celebrating performance, as we call it, our program is a global program, right? It is what we recognize is stored in the details of what organizational capabilities we want to build, as also is stored in the reality coming out of our core values. Right? Now, the intersection of the two is what you want to see happen across the organization. And therefore, the baselines of these programs is pretty consistent. Now, it provides for customization by virtue of language or pictures that you can use or postcards that you could use depending on countries that you are in, etc. As also the monetization of those awards can translate into what is meaningful to you from a catalog standpoint, right? But what you stand for doesn't change as an organization. So I think that's how we've been able to strike a balance on this.
Thank you so much, Unmesh and Priya, for your insightful answers. And now we will be going to a word from our partner. Life is not a problem to be solved, but an experience to be had. Xoxoday helps people discover places through people. Xoxoday is a very interesting space of hosting and curating some of the most amazing and unique experiences. From traditional sightseeing tours to unique once-in-a-lifetime experiences, all provided by hosts who have been pre-screened for quality, value, and service. Their customers use these experiences while they are at home or at travel destinations. A lot of enterprises use these experiences for various rewards, recognition, engagement, and incentive solutions for their employees, clients, channel partners, and consumers. Xoxoday has been working with a lot of companies, helping them appreciate employees and business partners who do great work. It's easy to use. The SaaS platform helps companies, small and large, automate their awards and recognition programs effectively. We encourage you to fill your life with experience, not things, have stories to tell, not stuff to show. People are spending a lot more on life-changing experiences such as adventure, gourmet, wellness, tours and getaways, hobbies and activities, and philanthropy. Some of their clients include the likes of Accenture, Cognizant, Societe Generale, HDFC Bank, Axis Bank, Infosys, Dr. Reddy's, Flipkart, and Google. For more details, you can get in touch with Swapnil on his email ID, which is swapnil@xoxoday.com, or on his mobile, which is given on the screen. Before we close, please take a moment to give us your feedback and thoughts about today's program. Your screen will display a feedback form once the webinar is over. Please fill out the survey and let us know what you think. It will help us assess today's program and plan for future events. And that brings us to the end of today's webinar. The archived version of this webinar will be available shortly on our website, www.shrmindia.org. A big thank you to our presenters, Unmesh and Priya, for their time and the valuable insights shared with us today. Thank you, everyone, and have a good day.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.